Baker Mayfield achieved a career first in Week 15. Can he earn a career second in Week 16? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Bucs first listen or first view today and every day. Don't forget that you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast, and you can find me and Evan Closky both on Twitter. Evan is at Closky of WTSP. I'm at Harrison82. Covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Evan's doing it for 10 Tampa Bay right there in Tampa, Florida. I'm doing it for BucsGameDay.com, part of Sports Illustrated's Fan and Nation. And you can become a Locked On Bucs insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs. And from there, you will get to text James Yarcho for the low price of $4.99 a month. It is free for the first 2 weeks. If you love it, stick around. If you don't, we appreciate you giving it a shot. Anyway, Evan and I get to text James for free because we got the plug. And I think both of us can confirm it's a good time. It's a good time texting with James.
It's enjoyable, especially when Ohio State wins, preferably. When Michigan wins, we block his number and we ignore him. We ignore him for a little while. Make him crawl back to us.
As long as we possibly can. Yeah, Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints, our NFL channel manager, forces me to talk to James whenever Michigan beats Ohio State, unfortunately. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs to get in on that fun. We are here with you in some way, shape, or form, Monday through Friday, every single day, along with our everydayers, and we greatly appreciate you for your continued support of the show. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. On today's episode, Evan is going to break out the crystal ball, and he's going to tell us who's winning when the Buccaneers when the Buccaneers host the Jacksonville Jaguars.
They've been traveling a lot. It's a fair misstep.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about the Devin White story that has taken yet another turn. But first, Baker Mayfield is going to try and do something he's only ever done once before this coming weekend, and that is throw multiple touchdowns in a single game inside Raymond James Stadium without throwing an interception. He's only done it once. It happened as a member of the Cleveland Browns. He has never done it as a member of the Buccaneers, so it could happen this weekend. But what he has done as a Buck, Evan, is have a perfect game. 22 for 28, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, a perfect 158.3 quarterback rating to beat the Green Bay Packers. Evan, what did you see from QB1 on Sunday?
I saw a lot of good. And he kind of needed it because the last couple of games, even though I know they won, wasn't as efficient. I don't think go back to the Atlanta game. The offense did not look good in that game, but the defense made a couple of huge plays, flipped the field a little bit, helped out their offense. And then both the defense and the offense were complementary and being opportunistic. So that's kind of where things meld together at the right points on the field and you just make it work. So it's interesting because on the whole, the past 5 weeks or so, the offensive numbers and the efficiency and all that stuff has been going up. But Baker's completion percentage was going down the last couple of weeks. And then he has this game where it starts off like a little rocky. You know, you get the field goal drive, then you fumble by holding the ball for nearly 5 seconds deep in your own zone. Other team gets 7 points because of it. And the mixture of Green Bay's defense being horrific schematically on top of Baker Mayfield getting into a rhythm and feeling himself. I mean, some of these throws were beautiful, tight window, decisive, aggressive, just really on a needle right to the receivers. And, you know, Baker says this all the time. It's what quarterbacks should do, right? Like coverage will dictate where the ball is going to go. And Green Bay, in a similar fashion of kind of what happened the previous week with the Falcons, they were determined to limit Mike Evans. They put a safety out in Milwaukee. They were like, you are not going to pop the top off over us. So it was really 11 versus 10 in a lot of regards. When playing offense. And if you're going to do that, Baker was just able to pepper Chris, some in the slot, some out of it. But they were lining up with, they had a linebacker on Chris a chunk of times where they were playing zone, and Chris was just wide open. And that's, for a lot of time this season, Mike was getting fortuitous coverage, and that's why he was getting peppered. And Mike is going to continuously be the first read if teams ever change what they're doing, but they have run into some cover two shells, and in doing so, that's usually when you have to kind of dump it down a little bit and find some underneath stuff. And that's where Chris, who's got really kind of a low ADOT on the year, that's where he's going to thrive. So get him the ball more. He's able to produce a lot of yards after catch. And this is how I think we envision the offense to look from day one. And so the biggest takeaway is Dave Canales mentioned this earlier in the year, and then he said it again leading into this Green Bay. And he said to his team, and he said it multiple times throughout the season, we're going to know when we had that game where everything comes together. We're just going to know. And he said the Atlanta game was pretty close to it. The Green Bay game was it.
Yeah, I mean, in the training world, we call that the light bulb moment, right? And typically from the light bulb moment, you kind of just want to hit your stride and all those things. But you kind of brought up a troubling trend for Buccaneers fans anyway. And really, it's fantasy football. It's a fantasy football nightmare. But at the end of the day, it's been a feast or famine for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin this season, where one of them is getting the lion's share of the targets, usually Mike this season. But just like you mentioned, lately, it's actually been Chris. Both men had over 50 yards this last weekend. Both of them had a touchdown. So generally speaking, solid day for both guys. But the stat line was certainly lopsided towards Godwin. Is this a problem in your eyes going into the last stretch of the regular season? And then is it going to become a problem if and when this team makes the playoffs?
So the number one thing that I would like to see more of, and it was sprinkled in there a bit more this game than the Atlanta game, let's say, is there needs to be more alignments with Chris and Mike on the same side. They do it a good chunk, but when they do it, they actually run a lot out of that. Interestingly enough. But here is the thing. When you put Mike and Chris on separate sides of the field, when you're going through your reads, it's going to go Mike, it's going to probably go to the tight end Cade, and then it's going to go dump down. You're not going to make your way all the way over to Chris because you're cutting off half of your vision. And to make your way over to Chris, you're going to have to trust that throw and just know that the coverage is going to lean to it. So you're really kind of in the back of your head, like, I'm going one here, and then Chris is going to be my underneath guy. So when you do that, you're kind of just saying we're going to have wide receiver one on this side of the field, wide receiver one on this side of the field. And, in essence, that creates a disparity. It's like someone's going to eat. Whatever side of the field I'm going to, wherever coverage is dictating, they're going to eat. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily troubling. It's just more of like, you have two amazing receivers, and I think you're leaving meat on the bone by essentially cutting your talent in half and not utilizing all that they're worth and putting them in the same read progression so that you can hit them more. So that would be the one thing that I continually stress to see more of from Dave Canales. And obviously you can't do it every play. You need other alignments, you need to show other things, but just show that more, put it into motion, if you don't want to really set it out of the gates. But I would like to see that more. I also, in that Green Bay game, like Cade Otton could have had 100+ yards. Like he was open all the time. And really, it was just that Chris was also open too, or even when he wasn't wide open, Baker was still feeling it with him and threaded the needle a couple times to him. But there were a ton of times where you're looking at the tape and it's like Green Bay, they left Otton all alone. And then finally in the third quarter, they had that drive where Green Bay made it 20-17 and Baker hit him on the same drive, 22-22. And I was like, man, that stuff has been there all game. You just decide to look his way now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely love the idea of using Mike and Chris on the same side of the field. And I agree. I think Dave Canales' scheme and his game flow operation has really evolved over the season. Even in some of the games where we saw Baker Mayfield struggled in some wins, some losses, you see the opportunities there in the scheme. And that's really all you can ask of a coordinator. So again, Baker Mayfield, first perfect game of his career coming last weekend. This weekend, if he can get his first Raymond James game with multiple touchdown passes, no interceptions as a Buck, then certainly the Buccaneers will have a chance to beat the visiting Jacksonville Jaguars. But what about the defense? The Bucs are 1.5-point favorites. They're going to need that defense to keep the Jags score low. Is a healthy team captain linebacker Devin White going to be available? We're going to talk about that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling guys like me and everybody else, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then just sit back and watch your winnings roll in. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. In fact, I already got my submission in for Thursday Night Football. And on Thursday night, I'm rolling with Saints running back Alvin Kamara to get more than half a touchdown. Rams running back Kyron Williams to get more than 109.5 rushing and receiving yards combined. And Rams kicker Lucas Havrasek to have more than 7 points kicking. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100 and then make your own picks or copy mine. I've been doing all right this year. Not perfect, but pretty solid. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Thanks for making Locked On Bucs your first listener, your first view today and every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Evan, we got to talk about Devin White. We're not going to talk about this situation in chronological order, but we're going to start with Tuesday, and then we're going to work our way backwards. So on Tuesday on Instagram, Devin White put up a post where he typed words over an image. The words he typed were, quotes, "And just like that, we back, built a story, but didn't ask the main character any information." Where they do that at, he finished the post with an upside down smiling face and a prayer emoji or high five emoji, depending on how you're supposed to use that. The image was texted over a pasted screenshot of an exchange between two people. Can't confirm that it was a Devin White text message, but one person asks what motivates the receiver of the message. The receiver of the message says disrespect. So you can read between the lines pretty heavily there. Evan, what are your thoughts on the latest Devin White developments?
Look, first off, I would love clarity, but Todd Bowles at the press conference podium, it loves to just kind of, he's not good at lying and he's not good at kind of sidestepping things. It creates a weird timeline, which creates confusion, which creates conversation instead of just saying, yes, this happened. We're handling it in-house. That's all you need to know. Like, just own it and move forward. Or you should have put him on the injury report when you had, you updated it with Vita Vea, Ryan Neal, and Josh Hayes on Saturday and Sunday, and you didn't. So, like, you had an out. You didn't use it. It was a coach's decision, or it was reported as a coach's decision. Then you say it was an injury. Then you don't even know if he told you on Friday or Saturday. It's just messy. As far as Devin is concerned, according to Richard Sherman and Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, seems like he was told whether he was starting or he was going to be a rotational piece. That seems to be up in the air of whether he was going to start and be pulled out at points or if KJ Britt was going to start and Devin would come in. Regardless, it does seem like he's going to be a rotational piece with KJ Britt and that they would like to put him into packages and wean him out a little bit. And if you're Devin, you're really now stuck. Right? Because you're either before this all came out, you don't want to be looked at as a part-time player heading into your free agency season when you're asking for $100 million. So that's a problem. But B, now you have all this chatter about, you were told you're going to be rotational, you're a team captain, and you said, nah, I want to start and finish if I'm playing. And pretty much said, nah, I'm too hurt. So now future teams are going to be like, what are we getting with him? Is this the type of character? So he's stuck. So, like, if he's not in it, I mean, with the Bucs, they just signed V. Jones back to the practice squad, which might just be a signal of like, we are ready to do whatever. Like the Bucs are just like, we're preparing for best case, worst case scenario. I think it would behoove the Bucs to talk to Devin and say, are you in or you out? Okay, like you're either with us or you're not. If you need to get your foot fixed, then go do it. Set yourself up for free agency. We totally get it.
Yep.
You know, get out of the building and we can just focus in on ending this season right. If you're in, great. This is how we're going to use you. You have to accept that. So, you know, he was there in Green Bay. He could have spoke to media members. I know that handful of media members reached out to his agent and the team for comment. There was none. Then you have all this stuff add up because it's confusing, and now you want to get salty about it, which is, you know, it's happened before with Devin White in the past where he doesn't really say much on social media. Then boom, stuff's percolating around him. He'll have cryptic messages, and we're left guessing. So if he sticks around, I wonder if he's going to talk with the media because usually in the past he has done that. And I think where this leaves off is for a lot of Tampa Bay fans here, the comparison that I make is if you are a Lightning fan, Braden Point, the way that he is so good on the ice is his speed. And 2 years ago in the Stanley Cup final, he tried to come back from a groin injury. He wasn't himself. And when you eliminate the speed from Braden Point, he is just another guy. And at that point, he's not Braden Point anymore. He's just some dude on the ice. So what you love about him is gone. With Devin, if his foot injury is removing his ability to be fast and get off tackles and do all the things that, you know, make Devin White's ceiling high, the reason why, you know, part of the reason why they won a Super Bowl, he was, you know, you can't take away what he did in 2020, right? Like, I mean, he's done some amazing things for this franchise. He's been a Pro Bowler. If the injury is hindering him that much, then he is a part-time player. So the injury is legitimate, right? It is. It's a foot injury. I would not be surprised if he needs some sort of surgery at the end of the season. You know, I'm wondering if it's of the similar ilk of what Levante had to deal with during the 2021 season, where he had kind of like the half Lisfranc thing, and he played against the Rams 75% and just gutted through it, you know, and you're not yourself completely. But, you know, like those foot injuries, if it is some sort of like Lisfranc-y type deal, it is a lot of pain management, and it's a lot of things of where you can't actually fix it in season. It's either your season's over or, you know, you play through it hurt. So, you know, I just wish that if this, you know, hindsight 2020, if this is the way that it all would have went out, I just wish that Devin would have sidelined himself in week 4. And maybe by now we'd be talking about Devin being fully healthy and potentially adding him to a playoff run as 100% of himself versus whatever he's put out there on tape to force, essentially for the coaches to force his hand of like, you're going to sit because you're just not doing it. You're just not good at right now. Like you're just not good. And it leaves his future with the franchise very much in doubt to the point where I think many of us would be surprised if he would be a Buccaneer in 2024, injury related or not. And I just think that Todd Bowles has to give him the ultimatum of you rock with us or you don't.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, look, a lot of the media reactions, the public reactions, the fan reactions, boil down to communication, like you said. I mean, the way and the methods that they, and I don't just mean Devin, but Devin and the team are communicating is not the way you want to communicate, the way you want to communicate. And nobody is doing it that way. So it's just going to continue to kind of go around. This is not the end of this emoji-filled story, I am sure. But the Buccaneers.
And I just want to add and you mentioned the communication stuff. This isn't just like media-driven communicate with us. Like Chris Godwin's wife got pissed off 2 weeks ago because of Todd trying to float through a press conference without really giving substance. So that the media didn't drive that narrative. Chris Godwin's wife got pissed. So she did that like 2 days after it was said. So, you know, that's just, it's just not that from that side of the fence. It's like attack things head on, be more transparent, and then behind closed doors, keep the conversations with within yourselves, but you have to give enough of a nibble to where you can't be easily contradicted.
Yeah. Or if you're not going to talk to people, don't say that nobody tried talking to you when
that too.
They reached out to you. Yeah, that too. The Buccaneers are fighting for their season. Whether or not Devin White is going to be a part of that fight, we will find out soon enough. The Jacksonville Jaguars are also fighting for their postseason lives, so that makes this weekend a playoff game. Both the Bucs and Jaguars are in that position week 17, week 16, and Evan tells us who's going to come out on top and why. That's coming up next here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your favorite events, and Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets to all your sports, music, comedy, and even theater events near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time simply takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They've got last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Everything is literally easy for you to buy, and Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the time of the event, and for some of them, even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're wrapping up this episode of Locked On Bucs, WTSP Wednesday. I'm your host, David Harrison, joined by Evan Closky, WTSP 10 Tampa Bay. Make sure you're following everything going on over there with your best news source in Tampa, Florida. The Buccaneers are hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. I did it again, Evan. I've got Buccaneers at Jaguars on my script, but the Jaguars are in Tampa. Buccaneers are 7-7, leading the NFC South, but they need to win at least 2 of their last 3 to secure their spot in the postseason. Jacksonville Jaguars are 8-6. Fighting it out in the AFC wildcard picture. The AFC South, I'm sure, is still up for grabs. We're going to start off with your bold prediction for this game, Evan. What do you see happening this weekend?
My bold prediction is Cade Otton, 100 yards, triple digits. We're going bold here. We're going Will Levis, some mayo in his coffee type bold. My thing is that just looking at the tape the past couple of weeks, I feel like that Otton has been underutilized. He's been open, and we know where he is in progressions. He's not 1, he's not 2, and a lot of instances he's not 3 either because Rashad becomes a 3. So I just feel like if you add up the tape and you start saying, man, we got like Cade's out there, and considering Jacksonville is not very good at defending tight ends this season, it just smells like a game plan that you should allow Cade to have a breakout type of game, one that we saw in Houston, and it doesn't happen very often. Yeah, but it smells like a Cade Otton game, and I've been in on Cade for a little while. Yeah. Certainly a couple weeks ago, the Atlanta game, I thought that Cade was going to have a biggie, and he really didn't. But he had the clutch touchdown catch, which kind of saved my thought. But though that's kind of what happens, right? I mean, he gets a lot of one-on-one coverage. Coverage is focusing on Mike and doubling him. Then you got to worry about Chris on third down, so people double him. It just Cade's got good mitts for the most part. So and now the schemes are opening up for him. I'm gonna go with him, and that leads into Cade being my player of the game as well.
And that's a James Yarcho approved take if I ever heard one. And you're right. I mean, you look at the 22 and you see it all day long, and that's really kind of the key to a well-designed offense. Is there's multiple options that are open. But I mean, even the broadcast tape. When I was first watching the broadcast tape of it, you could see. You mentioned that Rashad White play. You can see like you got 2 options here. There's more than just one really solid option. So a lot of things that the Buccaneers offense can try to do. Hopefully, as Baker Mayfield improved play is going to be something that we see a string of, and the defense can do enough with or without Devin White. Evan, what's your score prediction? Who do you see coming out with a win in this one?
If Trevor Lawrence is not playing, I'm going to have the Buccaneers winning 18-13 in just a weird score type of game. But without Trevor Lawrence, I think the defense will be able to do enough to get the stops they need, be opportunistic. CJ Beathard, force him into some turnovers, and especially with the Jaguars having probably Zay Jones out as well. It's going to, they don't have Christian Kirk either. So they're kind of a team that's going to have to lean on Travis Etienne. Well, the Buccaneers defend the run well. So now you got to figure out ways to get your wide receivers involved and really lean into Calvin Ridley. Ridley's been so inconsistent. So, I just think that's a tall task for Beathard to win that game on a hot team coming home. If Trevor Lawrence is playing, I am going to pick the Jaguars 24-18. And I know I don't want people to get ticked off at me who are listening because I picked against them last week and the Buccaneers shoved that right in my face. Here's my reasoning. This game does not matter for the Bucs. I don't know if they're going to have an A-plus game plan here. To me, this is a throwaway game plan. This is I'm trying to throw percentages off. I'm trying to negate some things that I love to do. I'm trying to really think about the long game because the Saints are playing on Thursday night. They're going to have a head start on you. I need to look at the Saints right now because the division is on the line in 2 weeks. This game does not matter. It doesn't matter. The way that it does matter is if the Bucs do win this contest, they can lose against the Saints, beat the Panthers, and probably still win the division.
Right.
But really, they control their own destiny in 2 weeks at home against the Saints. To me, you put all your eggs into that basket. You had such a good game plan against them the first time. It's a little bit harder to beat a team when you crush them the first time and you really just sort of put them at a fits. So you gotta redevelop that game plan again. So to me, I just worry that the Buccaneers are one eye forward and making sure that they win the Saints and the Panthers. Because if you beat the Saints and the Panthers, you win the division, you host a playoff game, does not matter. So I think in an 18-game season, you have to find look-ahead spots. That's the gambler and green skittle better in me. And to me, this is a clear look-ahead spot for the Bucs. So I'm not going to hit the panic button if they lose this week because to me, the goal is always going to be in 2 weeks. And I'm telling you right now, tip of my hand, I am most likely going to pick the Buccaneers to beat the Saints in 2 weeks in Raymond James Stadium. But yeah, that is my big fear is how focused are they on Jacksonville? And Jacksonville on a 3-game losing streak needs a win in the biggest way, and they will be laser focused in on the Buccaneers and winning this contest.
Yep. It's kind of crazy to think about, but the Buccaneers who have the worst schedule in this matchup, it could be a trap game because like you said, either the Jaguars game or the Panthers game doesn't matter. If you beat the Jags and the Saints, Panthers game doesn't matter. If you lose to the Jags, beat the Saints and the Panthers, Jags game doesn't matter. But how do you view this Jags game? That's a very interesting way of looking at it because, again, 7-7 versus 8-6. You would think the 8-6 team is the one that could get caught short, but the Buccaneers could actually get caught short doing this. Either way, like you said, Saints-Rams Thursday night, so that's an NFC South matchup to keep an eye on. Falcons are at home against the Indianapolis Colts. That's the other NFC South matchup to keep an eye on. And then, Carolina Panthers, if you're interested in what's going on down there in that NFC South matchup. But the Bucs win if it's CJ Beathard. They lose if it's Trevor Lawrence. That's what Evan says. Come back tomorrow and find out what James Yarcho and Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jags have to say. And then, of course, come back again Friday to find out what James and I have to say as we take our final look at this game. And James asked Evan if he wants to change his prediction at the last second, just like so many fantasy footballers like to do with their rosters right before game time. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bucs first listen, your first view today and every day. Thank you for making us a part of your routine. Don't forget, Locked On has launched the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel. Go to Locked On Sports today to check that out. Until we speak again, please be safe, be kind, fire the cannons. We'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.